Coach Cummings here, and I am so excited about today because we are bringing you one of a webinar that I am just thrilled about, because we have with us here someone who I admire, look up to, and follow myself because of what he's done in this industry. Before you introduce yourself, because I love it when people have others on and they're like, hey, tell us about yourself. And anyone hates talking about themselves. So for that reason, I'm going to take the liberty, because I've known you for a long time. Coach Chris Lane runs Chris Fitness, which is the pinnacle. I hate to just call it a training brand, because you encompass so much more than that. Chris has been in the fitness and wellness and performance training industry for years. He does everything from tactical coaching to personal training of Gen Pop. He's a sport performance coach, has worked with guys in the NBA, the NFL, youth athletes, and he's one of these guys that is always looking for different tools, methodologies, research, application to service his clients. He does facility design. I mean, the guy just really encompasses everything that is this fitness. He's been on numerous TV shows. In fact, what were you just on? I just saw you on a morning show in your local area. What was that?
Oh yeah, that was an NBC affiliate. So I do bi-weekly. I kind of serve as the resident, fitness, health, wellness, expert. Just an opportunity to give back to the community and present to them, knowledgeable information on anything trending locally or nationally for fitness and wellness.
I love that. And the reason wellness is such a important part of the conversation, I think, is because you really, we've had the opportunity to spend some time together, do workouts together, program and ideate different things. And you really are the embodiment of I guess it's cliche now, but the mind, body, spirit. You really take into consideration not only like the mental health piece, the mental strength piece, but also diving now into the cognitive areas that we'll talk about in a little bit with BlazePod. And then obviously the body. You're friggin' jacked. You rehabbed yourself after a surgery we're going to talk about in a little bit, and you're back on your feet lifting more than I probably ever could. And you just have that mindset piece that's there. What about you, and what about the industry made you so well-rounded and holistic in your approach towards coaching?
First of all, thank you for all those flowers. I feel like a beauty queen now to hold all these flowers right now. No, thank you. You can intro me anytime. Please do, or whatever. I mean, jokes aside, I mean, I'm humbled and honored to serve this, kick-ass industry that we have. I mean, and you're, very well of that, with your travels and your experience and resume as well. What's great about the fitness and wellness industry, I mean, getting into it, is just the ability to serve. We all don't get into this, because we're here to make $1 million and, all these things. We're here as, in servitude and to impact and change and sometimes be in position to even save lives through our coaching and through our expertise to be able to, transform. And that transformation could be, like a typical, body transformation, or it could be, a transformation into mental health and how it relates and integrates into our physical health. Or that transformation could be, spiritual, physical, and mental, and all of the above. So no matter if we're trying to take, an athlete from, JV to varsity, or take, a middle-aged weight loss client from 200 pounds to their goal weight of 140, or anything in between, it's beautiful to see the transformation that happens when we serve our clients. And I think our biggest success is, virtue, living vicariously through them as our client success. And BlazePod is an amazing tool, of several that we have an opportunity to work with as coaches and personal trainers and Group X class, instructors, so on and so forth, to really make that transformation fun and engaging on a daily basis.
Yeah, I love the fun and engaging component you bring up, because that if I were to think of two adjectives that embody you, it's what that is. You have this magnetism that draws people towards you, and it isn't just your primal good looks. You genuinely feel like you're there to serve and to help and to, wrap your arms around someone and say, hey, like, I can be your guide on this journey. Where do we want to go? And that's what I get from all of the different uh, drills that you've built out and activities, and put you in a room with 40 other people like we've done before, and immediately people are coming up to you asking you these questions without knowing who you are or the type of pedigree that you have supporting you, which is awesome. So the format of this webinar, as you know, but for everybody who's taking this in right now, is BlazePod and fitness. And fitness is, I mean, the aperture for fitness is gigantic, right? It's not specific. It's not necessarily task or goal oriented, like working with an NBA guy who needs to change directions better and work on his stamina or conditioning. Goals can be everywhere from, I want to look better, I want to feel better, I want to lose body fat, I need to gain muscle. All of these things that are, I guess I want to say generic in nature, but that is fitness. And the fitness industry is huge, but you also find these specific pockets that that people kind of align with. Are you a bodybuilder? Are you a power lifter? Are you a general enthusiast? You training for a 10K or the turkey trot or something like that? So what I want to hear from you, two things. What I'd love to know about you is, number one, how did you get into, let's say, fitness? We'll remove all kind of the specificities aside. And then you have an interesting story about BlazePod. Nobody from BlazePod contacted you and said, hey, do you want to be an ambassador? You found BlazePod like everybody else, or most of the other people find BlazePod. So, so go into that for a
Well, yeah, it was
second.
just on the device like anything else. No, it is a great story, and I'm excited to share that. As far as to answer your question, I think that at first, how did I get into fitness? I mean, I grew up into doing things active and exercise. I actually grew up in competitive martial arts, and through that, I mean, just all the character building attributes that come along with that have served me throughout the rest of my life as I transition into other things. But I think martial arts absolutely gave me the foundation and appreciation, for those things. And again, character attributes and physical attributes, because I'm not a natural athlete. But again, that martial arts served as a foundation for my transition to get into some more athletic things. So long story short, I think I hit puberty pretty early. I was the tall kid for a minute, and to kind of put some perspective on that, I'm 5'10" at best. But for a minute there in seventh grade, I was one of the taller kids. My basketball playing best friends, again, I was in martial arts. My best friends were in more traditional sports. They talked me into playing basketball, for 1 year. Just, I don't, you guys don't know I don't play ball. Yeah, it's all right, man. Just, get the ball and pass it to us and we'll do something with it. All right, fair enough. So I think I scored 2 points the entire year. I shot two-handed, ugliest jump shot you ever saw. But I fell in love with the game. So I transitioned and truly fell in love, with basketball, and developed myself as a gym rat just through my work ethic that I got from martial arts, to a D1 scholarship. So I was really proud of myself for that. And then through basketball, injured my ankle, got medical redshirted, and then I could spend a lot of time with my strength and conditioning coach, with the athletic trainers, but I didn't. I was limited to do what I could do on the court with the team, per NCAA. So in doing that, spent more and more time with my strength and conditioning coach, kind of shadowing, watching, and I fell in love with what I knew. It's never going to be a pro basketball player, but as a martial artist, and then being an instructor in martial arts and being able to reap the benefit from my dad, who was ultimately my martial arts instructor and coach, I found that I had a knack and an interest in the skill set and a love for coaching. So that continued to kind of develop and evolve, and I ultimately changed my major from art and my minor in Spanish to exercise physiology. Hit the minor in Spanish, and ended up graduating with a bachelor's in exercise phys and a master's in kinesiology, and kind of the rest is history. I was a GA for Marshall University, strength and conditioning for Olympic sports. And through that, got into all things fitness, because I'm blessed to be just crazy passionate about all of it. And I have a tendency to dance around into too many puddles because I love it all. And it's a blessing to be able to serve. So I humbly say, I have experience across the board, whether it's youth development, active aging, elite athlete, general pop. And that's just because I've loved it so much and enjoy having the opportunity to serve or assist someone in their goals, no matter what level that is. You kind of touch whether it's weight loss or performance based, strength gain, mobility, injury prevention, rehab, whatever it is. It's a blessing to be in a position to serve someone and to have a skill set that ultimately enhances someone else's life towards their fitness and wellness goals.
I love that. We really are in the service industry, and there's a lot of I guess trainers out there that we tend to get an ego when we get below 4% body fat, and clients are paying us to share our knowledge. But it really is the ones that will last the test of time, and the ones that have been at this for a long time. They really have. They're very service minded, and I liken it into like a Sherpa or a guide. It's like this isn't about me. This isn't my journey. I'm removing myself, which is really hard for somebody who looks in the mirror all day long, pumps their muscles, wants to look the best, eats healthy. Perceivably, we do everything for us, yet we remove ourselves from the equation to be a guide for someone else to realize their goals. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about you. And I think that's what makes you so great, is that Eastern background in martial arts. When we look at Eastern way of looking at health, it's very preventative. All these preventative measures.
Holistic, and the philosophy and the concepts, are next level, even though they're decades and generations old, right?
Yeah, and we're very in the Western, we're very palliative. Like we take, like, once something happens, then we got to jump all over it. And right. I think that's the holistic
instead of being proactive, as we all hope to be.
Yeah, proactive is probably a better word. So to the second question, and this, because BlazePod really does take care of proactive care or post-injury care, as we're learning from the thousands of physical therapists who are utilizing BlazePod daily. But so walk me through this. You're a trainer. You're going through your device. You see a laser light show come on, and tell me about that story.
As far as just how I discovered BlazePods,
Correct.
My first. Yeah, so you mentioned facility design. So I had an opportunity to design like a premium 20,000 square foot fitness restorative therapy kind of sports complex. And in doing that, I'm here in the position to not only design but also curate all the equipment. I knew I was interested in what is now coined the term flash reflex technology hashtag, and with BlazePod. So I knew the cognitive and the reactive, concept, and I knew the engagement potential as far as just the overall fun and effectiveness. Ooh, go touch a light, it kind of plays to our childhood, feelings like moth to a flame, even though BlazePod is all, obviously so much more than that. But at its core, for someone to just, plug and play, app-based, all of the great things that separates BlazePods from other type products, that are similar. I, as a consumer, was trying to research things, and this was going on 4 years ago, right? So, everybody's come a long way since then, especially BlazePod as a company, how it's grown. But I kind of had to make a decision for what I maybe considered, Coke versus Pepsi, type placement here. And ultimately, at the end of the research and just the thinking and decision making, I went with BlazePod, and thank God that I did, right? So, fast forward later through so many personal training sessions, strength and conditioning sessions, Group X classes, and so many, gosh, easily thousands of users now that I've been, had the opportunity to put through, various BlazePod drills with various different goals and various different fitness levels. It continues to hit a home run of the experience delivered every time. And that's what's amazing about it. No matter what angle, where you're at, indoors, outdoors, I mean, all of the attachments and tools and fixations, where you can place these things, no matter what the goal is, no matter what the level of the client or athlete, BlazePod has a place, in that programming. And that's what's beautiful about it. Because I see probably what I'm most passionate about in all of this. And like I said, I was an art major, so stay with me in this, as I paint this picture, pun intended. Ooh.
So was I, by the way.
Awesome. That's why we get along so well. But I see fitness programming as, just a canvas. You know what I mean? You kind of choose your medium in order to paint that picture, according to what you need it to be based on that client's request. And BlazePod is just has a place in that painting, every time that you create that. And that's what I love about it. So no matter if it's a warm up, the cool down, the speed, reaction, agility, the strength. I mean, I can place it anywhere, and it's always new. Like we might use it, every session, but it has the opportunity to always be new in a much different way that just really, I literally see people's mind get blown as I put another spin on it each time. And that's what makes I think that's what any coach or trainer can agree on is what makes a universally adaptive, effective tool for anyone, anywhere, anytime. And that's, all encompassing of what BlazePod is.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate those words and how you researched it and found it. One of the things in particular, the anytime, anywhere, anybody concept. I'm a good old mama's boy, and I go to my mama's house every single Sunday for family dinner, and have since I
Same.
went to grandma's
I'm
house
with
since
my
I was.
mom every Sunday after church. We're at dinner together, a brunch.
Yeah, and I keep my cones over there, and we set up BlazePod, and every Sunday we do BlazePod. And
That's beautiful, man. Yeah.
the what's fun about it, we usually only do two drills, right? We love the color catch, and we love the one where you're throwing you have teams, we have three teams of two. We use footballs, but you can use colored balls, and your three lights go on, and you work with your partner. A green light goes on, I toss the ball to my partner, they find the green, and it's my parents' backyard. And my mom, she'll actually be sorry, mom, she'll be 70 years old, I think, next week. My dad's like 74. My youngest nephew is 6. And every one of us from 6 to 76, let's call it, are out there utilizing it. And what they're not realizing is what you and I, and probably the majority of people listening in on this, realize is that it's much more than simply having fun. And it's hard to see on a thumbnail, it's hard to see on an app. And a lot of times I'll read the comments because like you, I've done a stint and recently been studying the neurosciences, and I know what it's doing, but I see these comments that are like, oh, it's like whack-a-mole. Or if I'm at a trade show and we're doing just this really quick, rapid thing, oh, it's like whack-a-mole. So my question to you, kind sir, is it like whack-a-mole?
The short answer is if it needs to be, and that's what people are enjoying, and it's checking the box and serving, the goal for that particular client at their fitness level. And again, no matter who they are, or if it's bringing people together for someone like you as, a seasoned coach and, athlete and all the things you've done, in your entire career in the fitness industry, it connects you to your mom or to your dad who are, active aging, or to your nephew who is youth development, and you guys are able to experience something together. So that's in response to your question, it's all about the experience. So if it serves the overall best experience based on your clientele or who's in front of you in the moment, then sure, it can be that. A lot of people, I think, just at a glance, oh, light, let me go hit it or whatever. That's where us as coaches, we get the opportunity to, oh, well, let me show you this magic trick. Allow me the opportunity to blow your mind. How about we have two collars, and I say, if it's one collar, you touch it with your right hand, and if it's another collar, you touch it with your left hand. And I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds pretty simple. And you see literally people freeze up, like it glitch, you know what I mean? And so, like, oh my gosh, I never realized how much of a challenge that is. And I'm not even moving, I'm actually just stationary. So yeah, what if we add a movement to it? What if we add a foot to it? You know what I mean? What if we're distracting you, side by side? So it quickly and easily, is able to be displayed and get that point across about how cognitive it is, because it's all about the decision making and blurring the line between recall and reaction and reflex. You have all those different attributes, and they're all ours. But I mean, reflex and reaction, are two polar opposites. And to blur that line and bridge that gap, and have to memorize a recall if we're assigning a movement or a hand or a foot or an exercise to a particular pod or to a particular collar of the same pod, then that memory starts to churn, and the left brain and right brain connection, all that cognitive development. And that's why we call it flash reflex training, because it is a cognitive tool. And because it's that, the body operates only by what? The mind. You know what I mean? So the sharper our mind, the more cognitive, the more, developed our mind can be, to where we can react quickly without thinking, without, impulse. It's just subconscious. That's the more optimized our body can become. But without this in place, this has no chance, which, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's what so many people, from the outside looking in, almost a consumer base, probably the same position that I was in whenever I was looking at these. I was just looking really for a fun, really Group X tool at the time, until I discovered this and really opened up Pandora's box to see what it really is, like I do today. But but for anyone, getting it and then opening up the app and seeing all of the different, logics and applications, and all of the sample, drills and exercises that we produce as coaches that are already preloaded into the app, those that choose to use it, they quickly discover, oh, I have to think. This isn't just, go touch, go touch. I have to, like, what am I doing? How am I approaching? How am I touching? And that's the true, training to have out of it, to blur that line again between reaction and reflex, and put those together, so it becomes subconscious instead of a conscious thought process.
Yeah, and it's no fault of anybody who doesn't really understand it. Not everybody has studied the brain at length to kind of figure out what a cognitive ability is. But you hear it every day when people go, "Oh, like I'm getting forgetful. Like I can't recall things, or I have a bad memory, or all of these things they're saying." You're like, we identify with that, and we're like, "Oh, you can fix that." I mean, just like you can become faster or quicker, or change direction, or get stronger. 10 years ago, about 10 years ago, we thought when you hit the age of 30, you just get dumber. You will not learn anything else. In college, I was told that your brain cannot bring in any more information past the
It's
age of 30.
saturated at that point. You must have went to a really good college to have your brain that saturated then. That's why.
My basal ganglion, man, it was getting bigger and bigger. But what we've learned through this, plastination framework, the brain plasticity, is that you can continue to hone in and impact these neural pathways. And some of the cognitive abilities that people don't think about is, working memory, sustained attention, divided attention. I drive down the street every day. It says, look up, don't text and drive, all of these different things. Well, with BlazePod, I've been able to text and, no, I'm just kidding. But there's ideas of doing two things at once. We live in this multitasking, multimodal world that we're in, and it is a cognitive ability that we can train. And there's several of them. People just don't think about that. And so you're right on when, you don't want to take that podium and say, oh, well, it isn't whack-a-mole, because what you're not looking at is, the cognitive facilities and the myelination that you're creating within your neural pathways. And you don't want to get into the science of it. You're just saying, awesome. And then you do a quick test and realize, like, their left side, their non-dominant side doesn't work very well. And you're like, perfect. Let me, like you said, blur the lines. And just so that the listeners here, and Chris, you say you're preaching to the choir. I don't know if you're referring to me, but we have lots and lots of people on right now.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. As I'm looking at you, my interviewee. Sorry.
Yeah, so I'll quickly just explain to everybody who's attending this webinar. Essentially, this is how it flows. There's a concept that we call reactive intelligence. Reactive intelligence is really the blending of the mind and body, training them together, or the brain, or the mental, or the cognitive and the physical, training them together. Because if you train them separately, like if you do a mental training and then a physical training, it's a 1 + 1 = 2 approach. Well, the new science is saying that if you do the cognitive with the physical together, in my head, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 approach. They say it's a super additive effect. And the reason I like this, and the reason we call it reactive intelligence, is because you are really taking down, decreasing three things: visualization, or perceiving or recognizing something that's going on around you, processing what your next move is going to be, and then completing that movement as quickly and as accurately as possible. because there's a lot of people who make the wrong decision very, very fast. It's making the right decision fast. And so if you can take that perceive, process, perform and shorten that, then we're trying to help you move as fast as a reflex. So it's really the BlazePod and the app are the hardware. The methodology of teaching is called flash reflex training, because we're trying to, as you know, a reflex, just to tell everybody, it doesn't go to the brain if it's a danger signal. So if I put my hand over fire, it goes to my spinal cord and right back, and I pull away. Whereas an action that we're going to do regularly, where we have to think about it, it goes to our brain, it processes, and it comes down. So a reflex is much faster, like you said, than a quote unquote reaction. And so the idea of flash reflex training, flash, obviously, visual stimulus, is can we process things? Can we actually do this with our brain as fast as a reflex would happen? So that's the teaching methodology that supports the concept, this global concept of reactive intelligence. So that's the story that we tell at BlazePod. Okay, awesome. I love all that. So we have a new feature coming out, which is really cool. It's the community feed, where you're able to create your own drills and post them. And if you can think of it as kind of social media, where, well, let's call it an educational social media. So a lot of times on TikTok, they're posting, I can't find it. I don't know how to find it, but maybe it's my age group. I'm still a YouTube guy that looks for things on YouTube, instructionals. But I've talked to a lot of people. My daughter's like, Dad, I figured out how to balance this chemistry equation on TikTok. I'm like, I don't know how to use it for that. But the idea here with this community feed is having individuals who can post their drills and educate and share, and people can ask that person to share it with them, and you can be working back and forth. It's a very collaborative community effort that we're really excited about. And when I was together with you, you created just some like mind-blowing things like within seconds. And so I asked Chris before this meeting if he could share some of his drills with us. And so we're going to put we'll show the video, but let's kind of walk through it. So the first one was this LR balance primer. So left, right balance primer. Walk us through what that drill is.
Yeah, so whether it's an individual, and I think I even in the demo of on the exercise have it in a group setting, but it's essentially just a neuroprimer, just getting our brains firing and getting adapted to two different light stimulus of two different colors. But essentially, we're standing on one leg, so we're activating ankle, knee, hip balance. Our core is engaged. Now you can do that on the floor, on a Bosu ball, on a balance pad, etc. Whatever you have, you can do it with a shoe or without a shoe. Just depending on coach's preference. Read the room, right? Essentially, you just have a very basic, you have a single pod in front of each user. The balancing on one leg, and we're going to choose two colors. And I think I demo in the video red and blue. And that's easy for, word association. Red, right. So if it lights up red, we tap it out with the right hand. If it lights up blue, we tap it out with the left hand. And we kind of go rapid fire on that. So we're creating movement, because the movement creates, little instability that's forcing that, ankle, knee, and hip to fire to make the intensity appropriate. So we're actually getting some training, instead of standing on one leg. Again, you do that for 30 seconds or 40 seconds. I sometimes will either run it for a time, or I'll even challenge someone who's, a little more schooled to get a certain amount of hits in 30 seconds. So I'll kind of set some benchmarks for people, individually, to encourage them or compete them against themselves from the previous round. But it's just a really great universally adaptable exercise for rehab, or for a warm up, or for group exercise, for an athlete or a personal training client from Jump Hop. So again, it's a kind of a blanket, type exercise that anyone could benefit from.
Yeah, I love that. And there's so much that goes into that, right? Single leg, stability, balance, posture on an unstable environment. Now everything's firing. So it's like joint stability in the ankle, the knee, the hip, the low back. And then all the cognitive components of thinking of right hand red, left hand blue. Like there is a lot that goes on. And the cool thing is we know that, but as the user, they don't need to know that. Just do it. And you're going to receive all of these cool benefits with it. I wanted to ask you something before we move on to the next one that's interesting, because everybody who does like the speed tap or something that like you're just in front of a wall. I got suction cups here, pods are attached to it. I put them on a wall and I say, I want to see how many you can get in 30 seconds. 30 seconds. I haven't met one person, no matter how fit they are, that afterward they're not breathing heavy. They don't have a little bit of a glisten on them, and they're like kind of fired up. And so I always think about this because we've never talked about it anywhere. But I always, it's fitness. We want to burn calories. So in my brain, and I want to hear your feedback on it. I look at like things that are maximal intensity, right, to produce growth hormone, testosterone, these types of things. Even though it's not under, a huge load, or you're still going all out maximal intensity. Although maybe you're not maxing out your muscles. In the fitness industry, if you're looking for something to burn calories, is BlazePod a good option?
Absolutely. And so, and I'll often use it for, more of a strength and conditioning style circuit. But, when I say strength and conditioning, that doesn't mean how we have to fixate on an athlete, whether it's a group fitness class of 30, 40, 50, and 60 plus year old, women who take advantage of that. But, to your point, I mean, anytime you challenge someone, I mean, that ups the game. Everybody has a higher level of engagement and buy-in. But again, whether you're stationary, you say, okay, max hits in 30 seconds, 3, 2, 1, go. And you're on the spot there, even though your body, your spine, your core, your muscles aren't entirely under load, your brain is maxed out. So to your brain, it's a sprint, red line. You're running in the red and you're trying to push your body in the red, even though it may only be within 3 to 5 square feet of whatever you're tapping. It may be multi-directional, it's multi-planar, and you're being challenged because you're like, 30 seconds, I can go all out in 30 seconds. But you're right, at the end of that 30 seconds, whether it's an Olympic athlete or a kid, or Jane Doe in my group X class, they're gassed and breathing all the same. So all of them are sharing that same experience because their max effort is their same experience to each in their own. So no matter if an Olympic athlete ended up getting 50 hits in 30 seconds and little Timmy only got 30, 1 hit per second or whatever, they went all out to achieve that. And that's where they have the same experience no matter what their fitness level. And that's what's beautiful about BlazePod to be able to do. So you can max someone out, their brain and their effort, no matter if it's weightlifting or whether it's sprinting from point A to point B, or whether it's tapping out as many as you can, on a wall stationary for 30 seconds. That effort is there and that experience is the same to each individual person, regardless of that fitness level.
Yeah, right on. Everyone has their own 100%, right? Which is going to be different across the board. You brought up competition, which is awesome. For all of you who don't know, we recently launched wall mounts. So now you can permanently affix the pod bases and the pods to the wall, so that you can standardize, so that we can get a standardized score, and they're just always up. And so I had the pleasure of putting up a reactive intelligence wall at 24 Hour Fitness in San Diego, down here at the Balboa, which is the most busy one in the nation. Big wall set up. And a friend of mine, Jamal Ligon, works with Odell Beckham, and Odell uses the RIW, and I can't remember what his score is, but he's had the highest score for about a year. So when I set that wall up, I did a educational seminar with the 24 Hour Fitness trainers, and one of the trainers, this young lady, she's probably in her 30s, she's like, what's the highest score? And I told her, I was like, Odell has this. So, I didn't hear from her for 2 or 3 months, but I had access to the 24 Hour Fitness account. And so I'm looking at it to make sure that everything's like running copacetic. And I realized that this woman has done this drill, I'm talking hundreds of times. And finally, she sent a text or tagged me in a post that said, finally beat Odell, and beat him by 1 on that wall. And she's like, I love this. Like, I love it. She does it between sets. She does it between workouts. It's just there. And so if you have a facility, the reactive intelligence wall is an awesome tool to have up for people to just go ahead and use. If you're in Southern California, there's 3 gyms down here that have them, which is really cool. So let's get into your second exercise that I think is really creative and fun. It's your octopus core tap out.
I worked hard on that name. Yeah, so again, another just kind of blanket, all encompassing for
Shit.
anyone type exercise. Really low key core firing and this, spatial awareness. I mean, you have to have your eyes peeled, looking left, right, down, and up. So we're laying, face up, on the ground. We have 6 pods, 2 at shoulder height, 2 at waist height, and then 2, just outside of our heels. And one lights up, and as soon as you light it up, you have to find it with the hand or the foot, whatever is appropriate and whatever is most proximal, and tap it out. And it gets another opportunity to say, hey, let's go for as many hits as we can get in a certain amount of time. I think how I have it set up on the app is 40 seconds because, again, I mean, the primary goal here is we have core engagement. And while we have that core engagement, kind of maintaining an extended crunch position with our abs flexed, we're tapping out because, again, as that movement starts to happen, we have to stabilize, rotational core, upper, lower. So we have a global core, as well as our abdomen contracted and focused while we're hitting and while we're being competitive, pushing the envelope to see how many hits we can get. So I think the challenge is on the app, how I have it laid out is 40 seconds, try to get 30 or more hits in 40 seconds, which sounds, well, that's less than a hit per second. But remember, you have 3 different tiers: feet, waist, and shoulders, and 2 different sides. So there's 6 different, pods there we have to be responsible for, and we have to be looking left and right and be able to use our peripheral vision and expand that vision and awareness to be able to see the pod in order to hit it. And then we have to hit it and then move on. As soon as you hit one pod, the next one lights up. Max hits 40 seconds.
Yeah, I love that. And it's that whole people talk about mind over matter, mind over mass. If I'm balancing on one leg, I might be able to do it for 45 seconds before I'll get tired. But if you give me something to do, if I'm watching maybe a program, if I'm actively doing something, I can go for minutes on that. And so maybe that young lady couldn't hold kind of that contracted abdominal position for 15 seconds, but once you give her a task and a time frame, it's like, okay, I can get to that time frame and stay in that position. It's that distraction element that allows that body to just go beyond what it's normally capable of going.
Yeah, and so you touched on something earlier about, using BlazePods for cardio. So that's exactly what it becomes because at the end of that 30 seconds, 45 seconds, 60 seconds or whatever, you're so engaged focusing on the task in hand. And that, at the end of that, you're like, did I breathe and all that because you're so locked into it? So yeah, you talk about cardio and well, more specifically, you said calorie burn. So yeah, of course we're increasing calories because we're increasing movement, we're increasing heart rate and ventilation rate, but we're doing that in a unique and fun and engaging way and a challenging way that allows you to challenge someone or get their 100% out of them, especially if we're challenging them to someone who's right next door doing the same drill, or if we're kind of keeping a leaderboard like, all right, who's next? Here's the high score. Who's going to beat it? And so it promotes, that challenge or that competitiveness, which gets everybody, fired up and gets their 100%. So yeah, it becomes kind of a little bit of a smoke and mirrors where we're just distracted and engaged, and then at the end of it, we're like, oh my gosh, my abs are on fire and I'm exhausted, and it's the overall experience of it. It's like, yeah, sure you can do an ab exercise, or sure you can stand in front of a wall and tap them out as we mentioned earlier, but we also talked about an equation: 1+1 = 3. So if we're training mind, we're training body, and we're training the neuromuscular adaptation that combines and bridges that, that's the advantage of that equation, the advantage of flash reflex training, and the exercise economy of what BlazePod offers, to each user.
Yeah, and if you guys want to test out what Chris is talking about tonight, or right after this webinar, after you eat lunch, if you're dominant, well, go brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand and try to do the same thing that you would with your dominant hand. And when he talks about
Try to
blowing
cut your steak with your non-dominant hand, but be careful.
Eat differently. Go continental style with your non-dominant side. But that's what he's talking about. That weird feeling. If you can mitigate that weird feeling and decrease it so that it's quote unquote ambidextrous, your life is going to be just so much easier. And why I say life, it's getting out of a car, like playing with your kids, taking a dog on a walk and stepping off a curb. Do you roll your ankle and you're out for 6 months, or do you bounce right back up, or do you catch yourself? That's the idea behind this. And it really is anywhere, everywhere for everyone. And that's what I love about the everyone statement. All right, so let's jump into one of my favorite ones that I've seen. I like lifting weights and I like landmine. And so you've created this last video, this landmine NSEW, which what is that? North, south, east, west?
That's it.
Never
North,
saturate
south,
your
east, and west for a four-way directional, exercise. So again, I think I mentioned, with the last video, it's exercise economy. What we haven't mentioned outside of, you talking about going over to your mom's and you guys, experiencing having the football or, a collar ball and then tapping out an appropriate pod with that. The synergistic advantage to take BlazePod and pair it with other tools. There's no be all end all, tool for us. We just, we use multiple tools to serve the client and to serve the programming and the goal. BlazePod is one of those few things that's like universally adaptable with other tools. Here we're featuring, a landmine setup, which is just essentially a barbell into a power pivot or a corner or something like that. And we use it and we call it a landmine. So essentially the setup is we have 4 pods. It's a focus logic. We set, one head level, one about waist level, and another one, left and right, more and less in a compass or a cross pattern. And we have 3 distracting pods. Those pods, I think, in the video are red. And we have 1 focus color, which is green. So wherever the green pod lights up, we perform the exercise per the assignment. So to kind of break that down, the top pod, the north pod, is a push press or a punch press. The bottom pod is a what I call a landmine drop to pop, which is more or less a landmine snatch. And then the left or right pod, respectfully, is just a landmine rotation, a core rotational exercise. But ultimately, we're getting into, a landmine goblet hold. Our knees are bent, our calves are flexed. We're just really in a reactive athletic stance, just waiting for our cue or our coach, which is the green pod to light up to indicate whether we're pressing, we're doing the landmine, deadlift or drop and pop, or we're rotating, east or west. And then we're right back to baseline position, waiting for the next rep. So it's a really great unconventional way to use the pods to where we're actually not tapping, but we're just using them to time out and give us an indicator of what exercise are we going to use. I take this exact same setup and I'll use a sandbag in front rack position and go press or rotate or pen clean. You know what I mean? Same thing with dumbbells, same thing with a barbell, kettlebell, an aqua bag. And I'll often pair Blaze pods with those tools, inertia waves, Bosu balls, you name it. It's such an enhancement to other tools as well. And it's very rare that you find a tool that stands alone as well as it does meshes, with other tools to enhance the experience, not take away or, water it down. So that's another huge opportunity and advantage of BlazePod among so many other tools. Again, in a world of so many, and there's no be all end all, but BlazePod is great alone and great, sprinkled on your spaghetti or sprinkled over here on your ramen or whatever it may be. So its ability to be an active enhancing ingredient into other exercises with other tools is unparalleled.
Yeah, very well said. The ability to enhance another, tool, and it enhances it by bringing in the cognitive. And I was in a discussion with someone at a gym, because a lot of trainers, and I even said it back in the day, like, get your brain involved as you're going through your reps, like, so you can feel it. And that's fine, but there's not a lot of cognitive abilities going on besides the fact that you're focusing attention on that area, which is great. It's just not a dynamic ability. And what you mentioned is something called reflexive cognition. And you're essentially assigning a color to an unconventional or something that should not represent a color. So if it's red, you do this. If it's green, you do this. If it's blue, you do this. So I'm not going to ask for your phone number or social security number, but I guarantee it's grouped in segments of 3 and 4. The human brain truncates things in 3s and 4s. And so you picked 4 colors for your north, south, east, west, which is at the upper echelon of what we can remember. That said, now there's 8 colors that BlazePod can use. The moment you start adding another color and giving it, and I don't want to use the word nonsensical, but I am, or a non-connected movement, like now purple is some sort of rotational thrust or something like that with that landmine. All of a sudden, now there's 5 things that they have to remember, that a color is they're going to see a color, that visual stimulus, and it's going to mean something other than the color purple, green, red, blue, whatever it is. That is a healthy brain. That is going to translate to any sort of chaotic scenario that you're dealing with on a regular basis, and it's the ability of this. People go, when you hear this and you're walking down the street, what do you assume it is? It's got to be a horse. Why is it never a zebra, right? Why is it never any other animal that clops and walks like that? Because we are fixated in one pattern. But if we can get out of that pattern, and all of the great business minds and people who are out there creating amazing things, the think outside of the box phenomenon from 25 years ago, that's it. Some people can't think outside the box because they don't have the cognitive abilities to do so and feel safe doing so. This cognitive, reflexive cognition thing that you're creating, although it's a great workout and it's like having a trainer or a coach in front of you, you're actually developing the ability to think creatively and differently, which is sometimes hard for people. Definitely not for you, but for sure.
Well, let me tie it back into something that you said earlier. It's like, a lot of people can make the wrong decision fast. And this is about training to make the right decision, quickly and fast. And that was a total metaphor for life. So even though we're applying this, we're speaking on exercise, and fitness and training and stuff like that. This is life training. You reap the benefit, even though we're applying it maybe to an exercise or workout session. The ability to do this, even in NASCAR driving, we're talking about Formula One and race car driving and stuff like that, the ability to see, process, and then react or respond accordingly to that. Now, whether that's, something fell off the ledge of the table and I want to, quickly grab it, you know what I mean, to process or so many applicable scenarios just in daily activities of, daily living that you can benefit from. And it's great to see people step outside the box. And that's really the mind blow. When my clients start to discover and we start to peel back the layers of changing collars or assigning certain movements or exercises or directions to a different collar. And you kind of start with 2, and then like you said, 3s and 4s. When you start to get to 5 and maybe, 6, it becomes really, really, really tough. But there's constant progression and growth to be had there, again, both in mind and body, and then neuromuscularly, in that connection of mind and body. And that goes back to our equation of 1 + 1 does equal 3.
Yeah, I love it, man. Well, we're about out of time. We're here with Coach Chris Lane with Chris Fitness. Super stoked to have you. We're going to end this with a speed round. I'm giving you 2 words. You have to immediately, in true BlazePod fashion, I want you to process it and spit it out as quickly as you can. All right, you ready for this one, sir? You're in the hot seat.
I think so. You're going to tell me a word, and what's going to happen?
You're going to have to pick real quick between 2 words.
Okay. I understand.
All right. I got like 7 of them. Trainer or coach?
Coach.
Chuck Norris or Van Damme?
Chuck Norris.
Basketball or football?
Basketball.
Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Roundhouse or 1-inch punch?
Roundhouse.
Krav Maga or Taekwondo?
Krav Maga.
Blondes versus brunettes?
Blondes, man. That's my wifey, Jessica. Blondes, baby.
When I was writing
Blondes.
that,
You're in California? You're in California? Man.
I was like, if his blonde's a redhead, I'm in a lot of trouble right now. Or if his blonde's a redhead, I'm in a lot of trouble right now.
Hey, I got her tattooed on my shin. I'll have to share that with you privately, Lou. I call it my Space Jess.
Oh, cool, man. Hey, brother, I love speaking with you. You are a wealth of knowledge. If anybody that's listening in right now wants to find you, ask more information from you, pick your brain, whatever it is, what's your handles? Where can they find you?
Yeah. So be careful if you do this, because I love to talk shop. So just be aware you're going to open Pandora's box here. people can get a hold of me on all my social medias at Coach Chris Lane. You can email me info@chrislanefitness.com. My website is chrislanefitness.com as well. So if you can remember Chris Lane, I'm not the fisherman, I'm not the country singer, but I am the coach, Coach Chris Lane. So again, I love, love, love to talk shop and set people up and answer questions and network and just kick it back and forth with anyone who's, whether you're inexperienced or experienced in the fitness and wellness industry, especially about training and BlazePods and nutrition, lifestyles, healthy living, all of those things. I'm, blessed and honored to serve full time and so passionate about doing those things, daily. So yeah, please reach out. I love to talk.
All right, and yeah, you can find his stuff everywhere, and on the Channel 4 affiliate now. Where you call home for everyone out there?
I'm in Southern Ohio, Chesapeake, Ohio. I live in a tri-state area of Chesapeake, Ohio, Huntington, West Virginia, and Ashland, Kentucky. So Huntington, West Virginia, to kind of maybe put a geographical location. We are Marshall. So I don't know if anyone see the We Are Marshall movie with Matthew McConaughey. So go Herd. That's where I did my grad school at. And but yeah, so that puts us on the map. And I'm here in Appalachia, Eastern Time Zone. I'll come see you, sunny Cal.
I love it. You can practice your minor in Spanish since I'm 20 minutes from Mexico.
I know, right? It's one of those things if you don't use it, you lose it. When I lived in Las Vegas for a few years, I was pretty back close to fluent, but it's been a while since the Spanish speaking population is scarce here in Southern Ohio and West Virginia.
Well, my brother, thank you
I
so
speak a
much.
little bit of redneck.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love to hear your redneck accent speaking Spanish.
I have to get my wife on for that. She's a Wayne County girl. That means deep in the woods.
So good. Thank you for your time, man. I know you're a busy guy. From the bottom of our heart, me, MC, Coach Cummings appreciates it. On behalf of BlazePod, we super appreciate everything that you do for the brand, for the company. And really, like you said, BlazePod was created to serve a community. And it was first invented by the founder and CEO, Yaniv, to help with childhood obesity. He wanted to create something to help these kids grow up healthy, happy lives. And it's just gone from there. So the origin story is beautiful. It started in service of in the fitness industry and doing what he loves. And so it's an honor to work with BlazePod and with him. And without further ado, brother, I will let you go. Thank you so much. And we'll talk soon.
Man, humbled, honored. It's been so much fun and such a blessing to kick it with you. And I can't wait to talk soon again.
Have a great day, Chris.
You too, Coach. Thanks.